Right Network. Mobilizing, countering the left, energizing the right. New Right Network, home of the New Right movement.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to New Right Network tonight. Your host, Brian Smyth, giving you all the real news, wrapping up today's news, exposing the fake news, and giving you the real news. Folks, we have a very special guest tonight, Magdalene Rose. We're going to be talking about abortion and how it is murder. You need to walk away from the Democrats. We're going to be talking about the Democrats and how they're absolutely imploding with their 2020 candidates and starting off on the wrong foot. Bernie Sanders is getting hammered left and right, left and right. I'm not quite sure how he's going to pull this off as he did last time. But Magdalene, what are your thoughts on Bernie Sanders?
If they nominate Bernie Sanders, who, first of all, Bernie Sanders does really bad with black voters. They don't vote for him. This was really apparent in 2016. They will lose a significant block of their voting base, as they should. They've spent the last million years lecturing everybody on how important diversity is, and they better stick to it in 2020.
Right, absolutely. And this could be a big money grab for the Democrats. Individual candidates raising money, being able to keep that money and then using that money again for their congressional race or Senate race or whatever their agenda may be. The DNC blocking Fox News from not being allowed to carry Democrat debates. This is just their way of keeping their candidates out of the spotlight from being asked real questions. Arthur McCallum, Brett Baier, again, even if Shep Smyth was there, Shep Smyth wouldn't be able to get away with not being able to point out socialism on display and Venezuela. I mean, you just cannot do that. And again,
no, you can't. And Shep Smyth, even Shepard Smith would be like, socialism doesn't work. What's wrong with you people? And then what do they say? Shep Smith is in Trump's pocket. There's no excuse. There's no way out. It's given Trump the best gift that he could possibly give him, because now he's going to be like, well, they're not in Fox News. I'm just going to bail and do a fundraiser like I did in 2016 when I didn't want to go to that one debate.
Yeah, no, like Elizabeth Warren. I mean, when she's on stage, I'm sure you can't avoid not asking her, especially that interview she had where she admitted she was wrong for using Native American status and then claiming I just felt that way or I identified as a Native American, kind of like the woman that was in the NAACP chapter out in California. Her mom called her out, showed the high school picture of her daughter, a blonde hair, white little girl, and called her out on social media. So how Fox News won't do this, obviously they will, and the Democrat Party knows it, and so they're going strictly with fake news, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, to throw shade and throw cover.
They are, and if you think about it, it's really stupid, like election-wise, because primary debates are really where you sway people. Your party presents a platform of ideas, and either independent voters are like, yeah, that works, or they pick somebody it works for. So to have all of the Republicans who might be swayable or more conservative independents shut out of the debate season and have no hard-hitting questions asked is really a disservice to the few people on that stage who can answer real questions. There aren't many, but there are a few.
Right.
The independents who might, be a little more swayable towards some of the more liberal social policies when they're not really crazy about those in the conservative way.
No, true. I agree with you 100%. And if you will, it almost looks like the mainstream media, when you see them bash on either Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, or it seems like, wow, why is fake news media attacking individual candidates that are Democrats when you would think that they would be throwing shade and cover? My personal opinion is they're attempting to pick a specific candidate for the Democrats, for the Democrat followers to say, okay, this is it. It kind of reminds me of that trick where you take a two of hearts and you stick it in somebody's back pocket, sneak it in there where they don't see it. And then you take the deck of cards, you say, what's your favorite suit? And you say, spades. Okay, well, what's left? And you whittle it down, you get them down to liking hearts. And then you say, what's your favorite number? And they say, ace. Okay, what's the lowest number in that suit? And they say, two of hearts. And you're like, wouldn't that be magical if, well, look in your back pocket. They pull out the two of hearts. No, it's the trick. They're pulling the wool over your eyes.
I think they want Kamala Harris. I think Kamala Harris is the chosen one. She's the one that Al Sharpton met with, and for some reason that matters. But Al Sharpton is one of the kingmakers in the Democrat Party, and Cory Booker has not been able to break that wall down. Also, Kamala Harris is like, I don't like her, but she will go down. Like, it will energize the Democrat base. She will do whatever she has to. The good thing about this is any gentleness Trump has to approach the situation with because she's a woman will disintegrate because there's no way to be nice to Kamala Harris.
No, she's pretty rough, and she has shown her cards that she can be that way. The rumors or the facts around her rise to fame, that's going to come out, folks.
Yeah.
Her first job, she was brought in by an older gentleman who was married, and then they had relationships, nominated her for different boards, different things like that. And so her rise to fame was kind of weird, if you will, when she started digging into all the details of it.
Her own father denounced her. Her own
That's
father
right.
wrote like an op-ed or something, saying,
right.
trying to because she was embracing racial stereotypes. I'm sorry, if your own father is telling you you're embracing racial stereotypes and he wants nothing to do with this mess, which is what he said, should you be running for president? No, you shouldn't be. You should be finding out why your own father, who's an educated gentleman, is horrified at what you're doing.
Once you start throwing the race card, and your father, you were born and raised in Jamaica, apparently, and your descendants, your heritage, your family actually was slave owners in Jamaica. And then to come over here and throw the race card, I'm not having it. I'm not buying it whatsoever. And thanks for her dad for stepping up like that.
Yeah, he was saying we did not work this hard to break down these stereotypes for her to reinforce. Smoking weed is like not a super cool thing. I don't know why people think it is. Like kids in AP classes, the kids that are working really hard tend not to do that. I don't think it's hardworking people she's looking for. I think she's looking for really people who are depressed, people who are unhappy with Trump to propel her to the White House, and it doesn't work like that.
Right. I don't think there's enough people in America that are depressed, smoking weed. I mean, you're right. Barack Obama tried to be the cool one, and the media tried to have him be the cool one. Yeah, and there are pictures of him smoking weed. And I believe he also made the comment that he tried other harder drugs or whatnot. That's not cool, folks. That might have been cool back in the 60s and 70s, but the millennials and the Gen Zs, these new young minds like Magdalene, up and coming, and abortion is not cool.
No, it's not. And it's not like people think that third-term abortion, I think in the young group, is like, how could you possibly do that? With as much science as we know, with as much science as we're taught in schools, how could you possibly think we would be okay with third-term abortion? All abortion is bad, but I think for people, like, they can comprehend how bad third-term abortion is. They get in their mind, they have an idea of what a third-term baby looks like. You hear third term so much in pop culture and TV shows, so it resonates with them.
Well, and when you say third term to a guy, I don't know, but I know right off the bat, third term, well, that's beyond first and second. So you're probably well developed there. I know the state of Ohio was attempting to pass what's called the heartbeat law. As soon as a heartbeat is detected, I believe within 6 to 8 weeks of becoming pregnant. John Kasich, who during the debates made the comment that he should have ran as a Democrat on the Democrat ticket, and we all agree 100%. But he in Ohio had vetoed the heartbeat law, which shows you right there. John Kasich is a Democrat, and now our new governor has said right off the bat, pass it to me, and I will absolutely sign it. It has been signed into law. Ohio now has the heartbeat law. I can't say the same for New York or Virginia. New York, your thoughts on New York?
Yeah, I mean, the heartbeat bill, I think there's one moving forward in Tennessee now, too. So it's a model that's coming out all across the country. There's one in Iowa now. What happened in New York, first of all, I hold Cuomo specifically responsible for this because he is a Catholic and he goes to Catholic masses. I don't understand why he hasn't been excommunicated from the church for this. Cardinal Dolan has called for it. I think what has happened here, and I talked about this before, Andrea Stewart Cummings was the Senate Majority Leader for the state Senate of New York, and she got this bill through by saying, with the appointment and approval of Judge Kavanaugh, reproductive rights are at risk, and so she swayed a lot of Democrats who were like, we're going to go down in hell for this, and a lot of Republicans by saying, if we don't do this, Trump will take over, and we'll never be able to have reproductive health like they call it. And she got this passed. So her and Cuomo are responsible for what this is. This is called outcrying conservatives in New York like nothing else. They are disgusted with what's happening and the spiral effect now in the
No, you're absolutely right. And I believe she was being questioned about this bill, and it did slip out that if the baby is born, you can go ahead and just finish it off. You don't provide any kind of medical care or treatment. The Born Alive bill, if you will. That just blows my mind. I mean, it's a tough subject to talk about, folks. And yes, it turns my stomach when I talk about it. I think about it. We bring it up on the show, but it absolutely has to get to you. Get up, do something, move, react, support pro-life. I mean, there's nothing more beautiful than life. I have 3 children of my own, and to think that a baby that survives an abortion, and it actually happens more often than not, a baby that survives an abortion on the table is then what? What do you do? As a Democrat, you go ahead and you kill the human being lying on the table. As a conservative, as a Christian, you absolutely provide help and health and bring the baby, raise it upright. My cousin's brother, his wife had her baby. I think she was only 5 months into her pregnancy, and she had an emergency. I mean, it was a nightmare. It was a mess. It was an emergency. Get to the hospital. Spent 3, 4, 5 months in the hospital, maybe even up to a year in the hospital. But at the end of it all, it was $1 million bill. Insurance covered most of it, but it was $1 million for this baby, who is now, she's same age as my son. They're born at about the same time. She's a healthy, beautiful 3.5 going on 4 years old. Just an incredibly awesome little girl. That was at 5 months.
Yeah, and they want late-term abortion as long as it's medically necessary. I read part of this bill. They deem medically necessary no longer by health code standards, but by penal code standards. That's what they changed here. So now, if someone has an objection, if a doctor has an objection to a woman having a late-term abortion, they have to take it up with the penal code, not with the health code. They can't with the health code, not the penal code. They can't even actually have an objection anymore because it's deemed irresponsible to say that to the woman.
That's unbelievable. And I was reading somewhere where they were talking about if the woman is emotionally upset, emotionally unstable, mentally unstable, whatever the reasons are, it seems like they could just come up with any reason.
Yeah, it is any reason. And who is going to criticize that reason? Nobody can anymore. There's no second check. There's no checks and balances in this system. Cuomo has taken it all out. Andrea Stewart Cummings has taken it all out. And I think Cuomo underestimates the political fallout in New York. There are a lot of Catholics in New York that are really disgusted by this. And Dolan is a pretty capable leader. I think he's going to feel the pushback from this come 2020.
Absolutely. And you remember the video of the former abortion doctor who went and he actually went to Congress and he gave testimony, and they asked him, how do you perform an abortion? And it was with the words and the utensils that he had was so jaw dropping. People in the crowd that were listening, you could hear them gasping at some of the things that he had said to perform a proper abortion where you dissect the baby. Matter of fact, I just received a robo email from Jexodus this morning that said that they're right now going to court. They're going to the Supreme Court, and today they're talking in Maryland court about stopping this dissecting of babies from the womb. And again, like I said, they're saying that they're going all the way to the Supreme Court with this. This has to stop, folks. People 200, 300, 400 years from now are going to look back on this generation and with just jaw dropped unbelievably can't even conceive the Democrat Party supporting murdering babies that are born. And again, this video that we talked about in show prep, where the same doctor is interviewed about medically necessary abortion. So check this out real quick.
One of the biggest arguments of pro-abortion activists is that abortion is medically necessary. What's your position on that?
We hear all the time how abortion, including especially late-term abortion, is necessary to save women's lives. Nothing could be further from the truth. I spent 9 years working at a tertiary medical center. I mean, there are only certain hospitals in the country that are designated to take care of the really, really high-risk pregnancies. You don't want to duplicate the effort. It's expensive. So these hospitals get referrals from the surrounding area. And Albany Medical Center in Albany, New York, where I worked, was one of them. I was faculty at the hospital for 9 years. And I saw hundreds of cases of really severe pregnancy complications, cancers, heart disease, intractable diabetes out of control, toxemia, pregnancy out of control. And I saved, in those 9 years, I saved hundreds of women from life-threatening pregnancies. And I did that by delivering them, by ending their pregnancy by delivery, either induction of labor or cesarean section.
Delivering the baby.
Delivering the baby. And I always tell people, in all of those years, the number of babies that I was obligated to deliberately kill in the process was zero, none. And I'll give you an example. The key point about late-term abortion that so many people miss is that it takes days to prepare the cervix. This is not a natural situation by any stretch. If you're going to dilate the cervix sufficiently, that starts off essentially as a pinpoint, large enough to dismember or tear apart a baby this big, that cervix has to be dilated, and that can take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. And especially when you're talking about later-term pregnancies. Most life-threatening situations, the vast, vast majority of life-threatening situations in pregnancy are not going to arise until 24, 25, 26 weeks of pregnancy and higher. And when you're talking about that, you're talking about abortion procedures that take 2 and 3 days to prepare the cervix. And I'll give you a classic example. This is a real case. A lady came to the hospital at 27 weeks of pregnancy with severe toxemia. Her blood pressure, a normal blood pressure is about 120 over 80. Her blood pressure was 220 over 160. Okay, this lady would literally be minutes or hours away from a stroke. What do you do in a situation like that? We stabilized her, brought her back, did a cesarean section, had her delivered within an hour of arriving at the hospital. She and her baby did just fine. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say we wanted to use abortion to save her life. Okay? If with that kind of blood pressure and that kind of problem, if we waited 2 to 3 days to get her cervix prepared, she would never make it. She would have been dead.
So you remember that video, right, Magdalene?
Yeah.
He said there is never a time when an abortion is necessary. No. He said to save the woman's life, you give birth. To save the woman's life, you give birth. That's how you save the woman and the baby's life. You give birth.
Yeah, he has absolutely never stated that it's medically necessary. And Democrats were so upset about that video. Who is this guy? What right does he have to say this? Like, being a medical professional is no longer a valuable career to talk about this. Like, what is a valuable career to talk about this? A Democrat pollster? What is wrong with you?
Right. Right. No, absolutely. 100%. And I know that my mother has gone to the March for Life that happens. I don't know why y'all picked January in DC. I don't know if that's just because it's easier, but you had an incredible march this year. It was beautiful. God absolutely blessed you on Friday with a beautiful march and a beautiful brisk walk. I think it was in the high 40s. And ironically, the very next day, Saturday, was the March for Death. And it was cold, it was snowing, it was rainy, it was sleety. It was kind of Kind of tongue. Yeah, it's funny. Put it to boys, other boys that you know, because myself and Carrie growing up in the 80s, we were always led to believe, one, it's not your body, and two, it's not your choice. So you as a boy don't even think about this issue.
Yeah, well, my friends, most of my guy friends are conservatives. My best friend is not very political, and I said this to him once, and he was like, "Are you out of your mind? Why would I ever agree to that? What? That's insanity." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I think boys, especially boys of faith, no matter what type of Christian or Jew, it doesn't matter, are very opposed to it. They're kind of like, "How could you even think I'd be okay with that?"
Right.
And they sort of look at you like, no, this times have changed. I'm a conservative, I'm informed, I'm not okay with that. I'm certainly not going to support it publicly or donate to places that do support it.
Right, absolutely. And I've said this before on the show, but I say it again. I was born in 1973, the year that Roe v. Wade was passed. My biological mother was 14, 15 when she gave birth. No money, no way to take care of a child, and she chose to give me up for adoption. The best thing that could have ever happened. I look back at that, and it amazes me of how things could have been so different. My wife, me, my 3 kids. I mean, when you think about the movie Back to the Future, all of it could be erased in just a heartbeat, just like that, and just gone. Terrence Williams, who's hysterically funny. And again, he posted up on social media today. He was in a wreck last month. He's undergoing neck surgery today. So keep him in your thoughts and prayers as he goes through his surgery. So he went through the foster care system, and that still in itself, I mean, he could have been born in a poor community. And as we know, out of all Black American women who give birth, 50% choose abortion. We wouldn't have Terrence with us. And we love him to death, and he's hysterical.
Yeah, I mean, my mother had me when she was later in life. I'm an only child. And so many of her doctors said, because at the time, the Down syndrome issue was a big deal. What if she has Down syndrome? Do you want to commit to a life of that? There was a lot of that questioning. And she said, well, if she has Down syndrome, that's fine. But as if having Down syndrome with the capabilities those people have is a write-off for life. So, I mean, I think like what I do, my videos and things are all because she said no to that. Right. So we see what happens when people say no to abortion, whether it's, someone's an accountant or does what we do, they still are making an impact. And we don't know how many impacts have been lost because of how many babies have been aborted.
No, you're right, 100%. And we have a boy at our church who is he's got Down syndrome. It's pretty bad. And when I first started going to this church, it was a little unnerving because he sits up front with his parents and he'll, make loud noises and moans and groans and things like that. And our pastor has preached many, many, many times that you don't know why things happen. God knows why. This may have been for you to change you in a way that you can reach out, help, and change others. And it's amazing because we've seen that family grow, and their oldest son has now become a preacher. And so you can see the compassion in the family. You can see the change in the family that I think might not ever have been there if that wouldn't have happened. So you just never know why. But we've got to treat life all equally across the board.
Yeah, definitely. We don't always know why. And I think when you see like organizations like what Tim Tebow does and things, it is possible for people to identify with kids who have special needs. There was a special needs organization at my high school that all of us volunteered with. It's not as if this is some sort of like punishment. These people can totally interact. They can be part of society. And it's just really people who don't want abortion to stop, that don't think that they can.
Right. And I also know a woman that was born with muscular dystrophy. They knew, they speculated it. She was born with it. It's something she's dealt with all her life. People can live with this. She's a prolific writer. People can live with these things, and these issues that they have changes them in a way to where they can interact with society in a unique way. There is I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but there's a comedian who has no arms and no legs and has like a little flap, and he calls it his flapper. And he gets up on stage and he's emotionally hysterical, and he makes sense to people, and he tries to help people kind of grow and come out of where you're at, and lets people know that, hey, if you think you're depressed, take a look at me. I should be the one that should be depressed. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So you never know why. And again, we got to treat life across the board. It's absolutely precious. And there's no reason that we should allow abortion at all. James O'Keefe, phenomenal undercover videos where we see the selling of body parts, the selling of these babies. And don't think that this isn't a $1 billion a year industry, because it is. And that's the dirty secret of it all.
It definitely is.
And with that being said, we've got, as we were talking about before, with the Democrats running on full-blown socialism 2020. I keep tweeting out to the Democrats, do you want to lose on purpose? Because none of this makes any sense. And we've been screaming for years on this show about other countries around the world. I've had a personal attachment with Venezuela because back in the early 2000s, I ran across a social justice warrior who praised Hugo Chavez. And I said, you're wrong. And I wish I could go find her again and ask her, what do you think about your beautiful Hugo Chavez now? And because of her, it made me look into Venezuela and the situation there. Hugo Chavez absolutely destroyed the country. And then when he died, because of cancer from Bush, that's what he claims, that Bush gave him the cancer, that Maduro, the bus driver, the union worker bus driver, now running the country straight on into a bridge abutment. Your thoughts on Venezuela?
Yeah, right now there are major power outages all through Venezuela, and Maduro is claiming it's the opposition, and the opposition leader Guaido is claiming that it is just purely because of the mismanagement of Venezuela. I think it's probably because of the opposition. But what does the opposition do when this man will not allow in humanitarian aid, when he is where he arrested 2 American reporters who had to get released, probably from pressure from the State Department and Pompeo? This is a country that is in complete collapse. And what's interesting was a few months ago, the issue with Venezuela had been that the middle class was protesting heavily, but they couldn't get the lower class, the working people, to protest. So they were able to spin it as it was just the middle class's unrest, the elitist unrest. Well, now you have people in the working class, people in the lower class protesting heavily because most of the middle class has left Venezuela, has migrated. 3 million people have left Venezuela, many of them young. That country's been drained of their young people. And you have them protesting, and this opposition leader, who I think is the legitimate president of Venezuela, is not saying, I want all this power, he's just saying, this guy is illegitimate, and under the Constitution, I'm the interim president until we have free elections. And I think that as long as this goes on, it makes it very difficult for Democrats. Bernie Sanders would not condemn Maduro. Ocasio-Cortez will not condemn Maduro. That woman from Minnesota thinks it's a right-wing coup. So Venezuela, enough people know what's going on, and it's a cause that aligns with social justice warriors. If you really think about it, they should want this censorship and everything to stop. That it's going to make it very difficult to motivate, I think, specifically Hispanic young people for the Democrat Party, especially Venezuelans. Cubans are very much against the Democrat Party in Florida. We saw that with Ron DeSantis. It's going to push back on them. And what happens if Maduro imprisons the interim president of Venezuela? What does Bernie Sanders say then? Because that will come.
Yeah, that
it will lead to the end.
Right. They were speculating that the interim president will be imprisoned. At one point in time, I thought that Maduro that Maduro was on the run in the sense that the military was starting to break ranks with him. I'm not seeing that still, and I'm not sure about that. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on. But again, you did say earlier, and I saw the reports today, that there are wide blackouts across the country. As early as last year, reports were coming out that there's no water. Yeah. Folks, when you're running out of clean drinking water, you're at a point where you're a third world country, and we've played video clips of citizen journalists on the ground. There's a very, very good undercover documentary up on YouTube. It's not hard to find, about Venezuela, where they actually sneak into Venezuela with cameras. They have protection with a group that's in there, and they tour around Venezuela and they show them exactly what's going on, how dangerous it is, how awful it is at night. And even during the day, you see people rooting through garbage cans and knocking things over and just trying to find something to eat. At that point in time, folks, it's time for regime change. There's no question about that.
It is. And one thing about Marco Rubio that I think is kind of funny, when Marco Rubio wants something, he gets it. And he wants Venezuela to have regime change. I think Marco Rubio's international pressure, although I think he could be focusing on other things in the U.S., a couple things come to mind, has pushed Democrats, especially moderate Democrats, who sort of like look at Marco Rubio as a last standard bearer of normalcy to them,
right,
has changed the conversation a little bit. Because when he's saying on the Senate panel, Venezuelan people have lost 24 pounds a year, when all the leaders of Venezuela are overweight, that cuts through.
Right.
And it makes it hard, especially for young people who are Hispanic in Florida and those areas of the country, to support people who support Maduro. Russia and China support Maduro, and Cuba. Those are not exactly friendly nations. Nobody else supports Maduro, and for them, it's all about the finances. They don't believe in him as a leader.
No, and you have the Democrat Party obviously supporting Maduro. They've come out and said it. I believe it was Kamala Harris that said that we've got to let Maduro play out. You don't be overthrowing him. No regime change. And you've got President Donald Trump. Folks, I've said this many times, but you and I, our grandchildren's grandchildren will never, ever see another president like this ever again. Embracing capitalism, embracing what the conservative Christian movement has always been about, just absolutely embracing all that, and then looking to the South down in Venezuela and calling it out for what it is. He was met with one of his advisors, and they talked about Venezuela, and Trump said, I really think that we need to do something about this. And his advisor told him, he said, this will be a slam dunk case. You make the case to the American people, and this will be very easy for them to see why socialism is a train wreck, why it wrecks every single time. And this is what the Democrats are leading to. Folks, they are going way further than I've ever seen them go before. Nancy Pelosi embracing for most part, embracing the anti-Semitism. You've got now, I saw it on Twitter today. I don't know how true it is, but it's a Jewish walk away. Have you seen that?
I saw that there's some rumblings. There's some rumblings going on. I think that's very interesting.
It's called Jexodus.
Jexodus, yeah. It's been a historically Democrat voting bloc. I don't know why. I think it has to do with unions. But
it has to be. Now,
with the woman from Minnesota and the woman from Michigan and Ocasio-Cortez, I think you're going to start to see some people who are like, when Debbie Wasserman Schultz, did you see that? Where she was up there and she was like, we have to condemn it and we have to say who said it. When Debbie Wasserman Schultz is ready to flip on this issue, something's happening.
Right. Yeah. Brexit, and now Jexodus. This tweeted out, did you ever think you would see a day when Jews started fleeing the Democrat Party? They call it Jexodus. Jewish millennials have launched a liberation movement from the Democrat Party. They joined to walk away and Brexit. So I would love for it to be true. I hope
I think it will get there.
Okay. I absolutely hope so, because I've been dumbfounded. I've been scratching my head for decades, wondering why the Democrats garner overwhelmingly, I think it's in the 90%. It might be as much as they garner the black vote that they garner the Jewish vote. It's just enormous, and I just have no idea why. There are a lot of liberal Jews out in Hollywood, and I scratch my head on that one too. So I don't know why, but hopefully this is absolutely going to happen.
Yeah, I think it will happen. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that when those ethnic groups and people were picking Democrat or Republican parties, there was really like not a huge difference. And now it's very apparent that there's a huge difference. One party sides with Israel and the Jewish people, one party does not at all. So I think that clarity is starting to come home, especially in the more Orthodox Jewish areas.
Right. And some of the other breaking news and social media and things that we're able to see and report to you in real time. You've got this whole thing with Ocasio-Cortez just imploding. We reported this about a week ago.
She's imploding.
She's now got 3 ethics complaints against her. I kept saying all somebody needs to do is file a complaint. There's now 3 complaints against her. 1 complaint for funneling money to her boyfriend who is currently working for a campaign. Another one where her chief of staff apparently funneled $1 million to private businesses. And then the 3rd complaint, Ocasio-Cortez, chief of staff, both on the board of a super PAC that donated to them. And then she donated to that super PAC of $27,000+, which is over the $25,000 limit.
Yeah. She's imploding, and she's imploding on social media too. She retweeted someone who has been under terrorism investigation. Right. She's taken up this anti-Semitism battle. I don't know why she took this up. It doesn't really involve her. She could have bowed out of it. She is just lying about the Girl Scouts thing. It's not why anyone is boycotting Girl Scouts. It has to do with abortion. She's lying about that. I don't know how she's allowed to get away with that. She's just lying. She's imploding. I don't think Ocasio-Cortez is quite as attached to this office as people think she is. You might see her bow out where she says something like, I can do more good in the community than I can in Washington. I suspect that kind of language is coming. This girl's not going to be president.
No, so she tweeted out last night, in case you saw the conspiracy theory running around, conservative groups now taken to spamming us by filling bogus ethics complaints so that Fox News can report on alleged untrue scandals. This is how the misinformation machine works, folks.
Were they fake ethics complaints against Maxine Waters?
Right.
Who so corrupt? Were they no, ethics complaints typically are not filed to be false. They're filed when groups have a legitimate concern with what's going on. FEC ethics complaints and finance complaints are not something that you file lightly.
No.
She is lying. It's imploding. NBC is reporting it. MSNBC, CNN. I don't think CNN likes her very much. They're really going after her today.
Oh, no.
She's imploded. It's a disaster. And she can't have Saikat Chakrabarti, her chief of staff, help her because he's under FEC investigation.
Right. And Jack Posobiec retweeted her last tweet and said, these complaints were actually filed regardless of whether you acknowledge them or not. Why haven't you said anything on the record yet? I don't think she wants to be on the record.
She doesn't.
No,
she doesn't want to be on the record.
And New Right Network posted up a picture of her. Check out the picture. And the picture has her sitting there on a steps in a rundown slum area. But the caption goes, has there ever been a Marxist who gained power who didn't immediately upgrade their life? ? Would be a shame if this went viral. Isn't that kind of funny that a Marxist, a socialist, as soon as they gain power, the wealth all of a sudden just shows up?
She lives in an apartment building with high-end security where people aren't even allowed to sit in the lobby. I mean, have you gained a substantial amount of power since you started doing this where you're able to do things like that? Has any major Republican been able to do that?
No.
She's living in a high-end apartment building, which is fine. But then she goes around and tells us we can't have hamburgers. I don't think that that's particularly fair, right, especially for my generation.
And some of the videos that she's posted up on Instagram, I think social media is going to be her downfall.
Yeah, I do too.
Because the video, did you see the video on Instagram where she was showing everybody her new office?
Yes, which she spent $2,000 more on in Crowley a month?
Yes.
And she wouldn't use his old office?
Right, correct. And they're reporting that according to the video and the assumption of the square footage of the office, it should be somewhere around $15,000 to $18,000 a month because of where it's located at. And she claims that they're only paying $8,000. Something really shady going on there. But this is, and I'm not complaining about her. She can do whatever she wants with the money. It's not me. I'm just putting socialism, Marxism, ideologies on the table. It's out in the open, by hook or by crook. That's the Democrat Party. That's the socialist ideologies. And you mentioned Omar. That's the one that's embattled in the anti-Semitism. The Representative Omar, who married her brother to gain citizenship in America, to then run for Congress. Something's so wrong with this. Dinesh D'Souza called her out and said, I noticed David Duke is now embracing you.
Yeah.
He really likes your stance on Jews and Israel. Notice the media will say virtually nothing about this.
How is that not front page news? He endorsed Tulsi Gabbard, I think her name is. How is that not front page news?
Right.
How is that not an article on CNN? This guy, when he was talking about Trump everywhere, he endorses the new poster child for the Democrat Party in Omar. Silence. Radio silence. Linda Sarsour was on Capitol Hill yesterday, meeting with representatives, probably talking with Nancy Pelosi. What is going on in that party that this kind of behavior is going on?
Right, absolutely. And thank goodness we have real reporters out there. We've got Sarah Carter out there. She is phenomenal. Absolutely love following her and some of the stuff that she posts. And this article she did today at sarahcarter.com. DNC Dem Whip, James Clyburn, South Carolina. Omar's experience is more powerful than a Holocaust survivor. Quote,
I saw that.
I'm serious about that. There are people who tell me, well, my parents are Holocaust survivors. My parents did this. It's more personal with her, Clyburn told The Hill. I've talked to her, and I can tell you she is living through a lot of pain.
So are a lot of people.
What?
He had to apologize. He had to apologize because Nancy Pelosi screamed at him. Democrat, inside reporters are reporting that she lost her mind on him with all of this going on. She was like, are you out of your mind? What is wrong with you? Yeah, all of a sudden, everyone else's pain is diluted for her. This is a pattern with how they treat these new people in Congress. You can't just condemn this anti-Semitism. You have to condemn other forms of bigotry. This is a new pattern for Democrats, and people are not falling for it.
No, absolutely not. And again, we have social media, we have technology destroying the Democrat Party in more ways than one. Again, technology showing that babies have heartbeats at 6 weeks after becoming pregnant. We've got all this information at our fingertips, and it's just incredible. Donald Trump tweeting out, giving us heads ups on what's going on here, what the real news is, what the fake news is. It is absolutely incredible. We've got to continue to support the new movement, this movement that is the New Right Network, the young minds like Magdalene and Rose, and it's going to be around for so long. You're 19?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. You're going to be talking about this for the next 60 years.
Oh, I hope not.
Well, no, I mean, you got to remind people.
I hope I'm not in this for 60 years.
The young kids for the next 60 years. So when you're 78, you're going to say to your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, and the New Right Network. And that was this whole movement. And after 2024, folks, it is all on our shoulders. Donald Trump will still be around talking about it, but he will no longer be president. We've got to carry this torch throughout his presidency, and then after that, continue on. And again, a lot of information coming out here just past couple days. The wall down on the border at gay_Galops. She's quoting Representative Louisiana Clay Higgins. Just to put this in context, D-Day, 73,000 American troops landed during the D-Day invasion. Last month, there were 76,000 apprehensions alone on the southern border. We have a D-Day every month.
It makes sense to me why this has become a partisan issue since President Trump's election. Physical barriers, technology, enhanced capacity to respond, they work. This does not mean the current crisis does not exist. Let me just put this in context for the American people. Perhaps the most famous invasion in the history of the world, D-Day. 73,000 American troops landed in the D-Day invasion. We have 76,103, according to my numbers, apprehensions along our southern border last month. We have D-Day every month. on our southern border. Just to put this in context for America.
That's context right there. We have a D-Day invasion every month. Donald Trump tweeted out, the wall is being built and is well under construction. Big impact will be made. Many additional contracts are close to being signed, far ahead of schedule, despite all the Democrat obstructions and fake news. Folks, he's got the money. He's got the money. He's got the ability, and he's got the drive to make it happen. At Start Packing, I love that. CEO offers to build 234 miles of border wall for $1.4 billion at POTUS at GOP. Get this company signed up. You want to talk about innovation? That's America, the American mind. We are innovators. Put an obstacle in front of us and we will absolutely hurdle it. There's no question about it. So I'm just really excited about everything going on. And then with the tweets, thank goodness Donald Trump's able to keep his Twitter account open. The Stormy Daniels thing has now gone away. It has already been ruled. Her case has been dropped. She cannot go after Donald Trump. That made news the past 24 hours. Thank goodness. The Cohen thing is still kind of simmering. Donald Trump tweeted out, breaking news, MSNBC. Cohen's lawyer contradicts Cohen's testimony about ever seeking presidential pardon. Folks, everything the Democrats touch just fall apart. It reminds me of the original Flintstones and the Flintstone kids. When the kids grew up and they were teenagers, they had a friend that always came around. Slep rock.
Oh, wowzy wow. I think I'll play my favorite record. Rainy days are here again.
It's him again.
See, it's hopeless.
Yeah, it's the same old slep rock.
Every time he came around, everything fell apart. Whatever he touched. The car fell apart. The table fell apart. This is your Democrat Party on display. And I'm so excited to be the one to bring it to you, to show all of this. And we got Lindsey Graham doing what he does. Lindsey Graham sent a letter to Barr, 8 different points that he wants all these documents released to him. He wants to see everything on the table. It is amazing what he has asked for. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's in the show notes down below. Again, all the documents. He's asking for the 302s. He's asking for the reasons for the Steele dossier. He's asking for everything from Barr. Barr's serious about getting on with this, and I think you're going to see something magical happen. And then I'll leave it with this. Overnight, at Megavolts 001, Judicial Watch uncovers records showing numerous Bruce Orr communications with Fusion GPS and dossier authors Christopher Steele. We knew they communicated, but now we're seeing the breadth and depth of their communications. And so all of this being made clear. And then again, I guess the last thing, breaking the last 24 hours, Paul Manafort is going to jail. He's going to jail for 47 months, which apparently is the minimum that Judge Ellis could give him. And John Cardillo tweeted this out, saying that the crimes had nothing to do with either collusion or Trump, and he gave him the minimum.
And he's 74. He's 70 rather. That's a long time. Liberals are upset about that. He's a 70-year-old man who's in a wheelchair, and you're upset because he only got 4 years in federal prison?
No, I agree. Let it be and move on. And so all these process crimes, if you will, crimes that were found after the fact. And we've even got, anyways, the other Democrat that's launching the investigation into all of Donald Trump's stuff was just on CNN. And I got the clip for you here. He admits to CNN, now we ain't got nothing. But we're going to go find it.
Okay, so now you're not sure he's obstructed justice?
Personally, I think he has, but we have to look and see. If we're going to do anything, you have to have proof. I think there's a lot of evidence, but we have to get a lot more evidence.
So that's what this is about. You don't yet have the proof.
That's part of what this is.
You Democrats, if you're a Democrat, you're watching the show, I'm not laughing at you. I want you to hashtag walk away. Just walk away from the nonsense, folks. And any last words, Magdalene?
I would just say to parents, everybody, if you can, make your kid watch a few-minute video on what's going on in Venezuela. in what's going on with late-term abortion in New York, all of the major news stories, because those stories do matter. And it doesn't matter if your kid's 12, they'll understand some context. And if Democrats are going to go after kids early too, then you have to at least make sure your kids are prepared for what's going on.
Absolutely, folks. And again, thank you for watching New Right Network tonight. Monday through Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Tune in, share it with your friends and your family. And if this is the first time you've been on the show or seen the show, crush the follow. We'll follow back and help us to keep America great again. America First agenda. Have a good night, folks.
You've been listening to New Right Network, mobilizing, countering, energizing. Online at newrightnetwork.com.